Greetings in Jesus' wonderful name and welcome to Riverside Chats. I began a series on Rachel. I want to continue with that series today. We are looking at the positive elements of Rachel's personality. She had positives and negatives. Today, we will look at her determination. She was very persistent and determined. She never gave up. This is one of the traits of people who are very competitive. They never give up. She wanted a baby. She had Jacob's love. Jacob loved her much more than he loved Leah. But that was not sufficient. She wanted an extension of the love relationship between Jacob and her. She wanted a son. God may seem to delay what we ask him for, but delay is never denial. Delay is God working out a better purpose for a better time. In his time, he makes all things beautiful in his time. Lord, please show me every day as you're teaching me your way, for you do just what you say in your time. God's timetable is much better than ours. God was going to give Rachel a baby. And what a baby he gave her. He gave her the cream of the crop. None of Leah's children could compare to the child that would come. The child would be named Joseph. And Joseph is the best type of Christ in the Old Testament. He's so much like Jesus, the dreamer, who went from the pit to the palace, who went from just being thrown into a pit to being prime minister of Egypt. His father favored him by making him a coat of many colors. And later she would give birth to Benjamin, and she would die in childbirth. On her deathbed, she asked Jacob to call him Benoni, which means child of my sorrow. But Jacob named him Benjamin. I come from a family, we are called the Paulia family, and my great-grandparents became Christians. And they made a decision to follow Christ. They came from India. I don't know the circumstances of all that brought them to Christ, but they were the efforts of Indian missionaries, the Rangia family, who did lovely work among indentured laborers who came from India to work in the sugarcane fields of South Africa. My great-grandparents made a decision to follow Christ. Now, one of their sons, his name was Benjamin. My grandfather's name was Stephen. He had another brother whose name was Samson. Another one, Jeremiah. The oldest of all of them was Reuben, just like Jacob's family. You see what they did? They gave them Bible names when they became Christians. Benjamin was Rachel's younger child. She had difficult childbirth and died in childbirth. You know, so many women have cesareans, they have C-section. But so many died earlier in childbirth. You know, Rachel's strength is seen in a willingness never to give up, no matter what the circumstances. She was a good negotiator. She would think up solutions. At one time, she bartered for a night with Jacob, although Jacob was her husband too, for mandrakes, which seemed to enhance fertility. I don't know how true, but some people think it was like a sweet apple In South Africa, we had a fruit called custard apple. I don't know if it's the same fruit. Rachel never stopped praying for a pregnancy. She prayed continually. She prayed to the God of heaven to open her womb. Now, the God of heaven opens wombs and he shuts wombs. I have a cousin, her name is Carol, daughter of my auntie Margaret and Uncle Bobby. They couldn't have a child for a long time. Many prayed for a child for them. I remember at one meeting of the family, I never do this, but I prophesied that they'd have a child this time next year. And guess what? The child came and she fell pregnant again. Now, there's great stigmata with the shutting of the womb. I go to India, and I've not gone in a while. I just had an invite yesterday from a pastor from Bangalore who is now situated in a new area. He said, Pastor, I have the supervision of many churches, and I'd like you to come to India. Of late, God has been leading me to South Africa because I minister among Indian people primarily in South Africa, although I minister to all races, and particularly blacks and Indians. Many of the churches have now been integrated. The Lord has diverted my interest more because I reach the same kind of people group in a different situation. And I grew up in South Africa. And as I get older, I feel it's more advantageous for me to concentrate on South Africa because that's where my family is. My mom is 82. She'll be 83 come January. And I love spending time with her. God has been good. I went in April of this year, and I am planning in a few months to go to South Africa again for the second time. God is faithful. She never stopped praying. She never stopped trying to get pregnant. The Bible says hope deferred makes the heart sick. A wounded spirit dries up the bones. So many people prayed for a child all their lives and wouldn't have one, and then had a child. That's amazing. God promised the woman fruit from her body. A child is fruit from a body. I talked about the birth rate has significantly dropped in Europe, and that's why so many immigrants come from other countries and they believe in having a lot of children. Some of them have a dozen children. And what countries in Europe fail to realize is that their countries are being taken over by immigrants who come and become citizens. There's been a lot of hubbub about the Last Supper and the portrayal of the Last Supper in woke presentations. It was a mockery against Christianity. And it is so sad that that has been the case. Rachel was a real fighter. She was determined to have a baby. That's what faith is. Faith has in it the element of determination, knowing that God will answer our prayer. It's amazing when the outlook gets bad, we need to try the uplook. She was happy. She had the love of Jacob. But that love would be so complete with a child. It must have been tremendously intimidating for Rachel. Each time a sister got pregnant. Oh, I believe that Jacob hardly wanted intimacy with Leah. I don't know whether he did it because it was an obligation. She was a wife too. But the few times he would have intimacy with her, she would fall pregnant. You see, God works in the finer details of life for a grander and bigger purpose. There was Reuben, and there was Simeon, there was Levi, there was Judah. Praise is a tremendous thing. Praise enables us to take the pain out of the situations we go through and focus on God's love for us and His Word. She was determined. She must have got a lot of flack from her sister Leah. Leah was a good lady, but she had the clout. She had the sons and a daughter to prove it. And all of this time, Rachel was barren. In some cultures, barrenness is such a bad thing that a man can divorce his wife if she does not give him a baby. When a man has children, he's rich. When a woman has children, they are rich. They may not have a lot of money. Our eldest is 42. His profile primarily is that he has the heart of a father, very, very fatherly, very caring, very kind. He has some weak points too, like we all do, and I have mine. Our son Nathaniel, who's a state trooper, he's so different to the first child, but strong in his own ways, powerful, a good young man. But none of us are perfect. He has weaknesses of his own, like I do. As my son David, our son David. Good young man, each so different from the other. I love it when they all get together. We had a vacation in Daytona Beach several weeks ago, and we had 3 condos that we rented so each one could be separate. And we had a great time. The grandchildren were there. The whole family was there for the first time, and we spent almost a week together. All of our children have strengths and weaknesses. We have a daughter. She's strong in some ways. Different. You know, I want to encourage you, love your children uniquely. They are not all the same. Oh yes, they all have weaknesses. They all have strengths. Some may have more weaknesses than the other, but never show partiality. Jacob showed partiality, and God intervened. Rachel, as some would say, was quite a tough cookie to crack. She was a strong woman. Nothing wrong with strong women. Sometimes people think strong women are domineering women. Not necessarily. The one who taught me to drive was a doctor when I was in Bible college in South Africa. Her name is Dr. Madeleine Beerens. She married a professor of mine who taught me at college. His name was Herbert Beerens. He was Flemish. He was from Belgium. She was strong in personality, but one of the most submissive women I've ever seen. I met them through God's intervention. My daughter and I were at Schiphol Airport in Amsterdam, heading for South Africa. And we met through God's providence at the airport in Amsterdam. We had not seen each other for years, but made connections again. So you can be a strong woman. You also can have a ferocious spirit, a stubborn spirit. Dr. Madeleine didn't have that, but she was a strong woman, a leader. But I lived in the home before I got married. I lived in the home for 6 months. So I saw them at every dinner we had together. What a loving relationship. A strong woman can be a submissive woman. Rachel, as we look at her character, she was determined. Determined to have a child, never gave up. And God answered a prayer, gave it Joseph. What a child. What a man. What a leader. What a type of Christ. God bless you and love ya.